Hey guys, good morning. A little Samara News Coffee Talk to get you started on your day. 3 quick things I think you need to know as we get into our Wednesday and ease on to the second half of the week. You know, it's been a tough go for us over the last week here outside of Austin, Texas, because the weather has been so bad. We've had flooding in the area, and even last night, our electricity took a hit. Like, I was wondering, I think I could do most of Samara News through my phone, which is part of the way that I designed it so that we could do it on the move, if you will. We could always structure the site that way, but I never had to completely produce it through my phone. And luckily I didn't have to do it last night. The reason why I'm mentioning this, though, is that what's happening in Austin, Texas is part of a much larger weather pattern that's affecting a wide swath of the United States with really violent, severe weather, including tornado warnings for almost 2 million, an estimated 2 million people. So if you're experiencing tough weather where you are, whether it's in Texas, Oklahoma, it's kind of the central part of the country, you're not alone. And it looks like that weather pattern is going to continue. So that's really has the potential to impact your life, whether it's just driving down the road, but also through travel. Some of these major airports are being affected by this weather. So just something I want you to kind of keep an eye on, because it's a long weather. We've had a long stretch of severe weather in the country. So just something to know about today. That's number one. Number two, you might see headlines across your phone or news alerts that talk about the Attorney General being held in contempt in Congress. That vote is today in about an hour. So it's about 10 a.m. Eastern time. So depending on when you're watching this video, it could have happened already. The Attorney General there's a vote considering him to be held in contempt for not turning over the full special counsel reports. It was requested, and it doesn't look like he's going to comply, which he doesn't have to. I mean, he doesn't have to. I mean, the special counsel reports doesn't ever have to be made public. And so when the Attorney General made the choice to make a redacted version public, that was a choice. Well, now Congress issued a subpoena. They want the full reports. Here's the thing I want you to know about contempt of Congress, or just in contempt in general. The only reference I have for being held in contempt is Law and Order. So when someone's held in contempt, it means that they're either not following the procedures, they're not showing up for court on time, for example, or they're misbehaving. And in Congress, it's sort of the same thing. If you're not complying with the subpoena, for example, you can be held in contempt. And so the Attorney General, the top law enforcement official in the country, could be held in contempt, and we could see that today. What I want you to know is that it is largely symbolic. I mean, it's not something that we should just breeze over, because it's only happened, less than a half a dozen times in the last 30 years. But it has happened to officials before. It happened during the Obama administration for Attorney General Eric Holder, for example. So the question is it an effective use? So is being held in contempt going to force someone to turn over documents or force a change in behavior? And what you should know is the likelihood is no. So someone can be voted to be held in contempt, but that doesn't mean Attorney General Barr is going to hand over more documents. It doesn't mean he's going to be arrested. It could mean that this could go to courts, but the likelihood of it going any further is not very high. So it's could be shocking headlines, but I want you to know a little bit behind it. Okay, last thing I think you should know, I've been checking what's going on in Denver today, because Denver, as a city, is considering an initiative to make what we could affectionately call magic mushrooms legal. Well, wait a minute. I shouldn't say legal. That's actually wrong. It would not make them legal, but it would basically give citizens access to magic mushrooms without the fear of major prosecution. So the ingredient in a magic mushroom that makes it hallucinogenic is illegal federally, just like marijuana is illegal federally. But what cities in some states are considering doing is making it a very low offense, or in some ways deterring or discouraging law enforcement from arresting people for that sort of nonviolent drug offense. Very similar to the arguments of marijuana. The argument for these mushrooms is that they have medicinal qualities, and that it's a low priority for police, so we should be spending our taxpayer money in other ways to enforce other laws. Folks that don't like this idea say, well, we don't really know that much about mushrooms, and is that good for the community? Is it good for the individuals? Those are basically the two sides. There is a researcher at a Johns Hopkins, which has been looking at the effects of this specific hallucinogenic ingredient, that says what they found in very, very small studies, okay, so it does need more research, is that if someone takes a dose of this hallucinogenic, that it could have lasting effects that improves their anxiety and depression for months. So a single dose can have a positive effect for a long time. And he says, this is why we really need to study this. But he also says, the potential for someone to have a bad trip is there. And so you need medical supervision. So I thought it was, because of this conversation we're having in the country about legalizing marijuana, or again, making marijuana more accessible. It doesn't necessarily always make it legal. It just makes it that a city or state's not going to enforce the federal law. I thought it was interesting that this has come up about mushrooms, not only in Denver, but California, Oregon, and even Iowa, where a Republican lawmaker was advocating for a change in the law about mushrooms. I mean, who knew? I didn't know. I mean, I'm not really big into illegal drugs. I know that might be shocking to you. But I mean, I think it's sort of interesting. You're seeing this wave of this question about whether or not, what sort of status should these laws have. So check out our card on that today. So those are the 3 things I think you should know. Definite severe weather in a large part of the country that has potential to affect a lot of the country because of travel and everything else. You have some drama happening in Congress, but the actual real effect of that to move a story forward for the special counsel report or any real sort of impact is likely minor. And then sort of this interesting conversation about mushrooms, not the kind on pizza. Okay, I hear someone crying. I'm going to go inside now. Have a great day, guys. And I won't see you tomorrow, likely. I have an early doctor's appointment. It's part of pregnancy. I got to get my blood drawn and all that jazz. You know what I'm saying? So, but I will definitely see you for the week in review. All right, guys. Have a great day. I'll talk to you later.